Hi, everybody. Welcome to Decoded. My name is Andrew Gibbs. I'm the founder of Dieline, and I'm so thankful to have you here today. Today, we have an extra special episode of Decoded. We'll be decoding the ready-to-drink and cocktail-to-go categories with the Spearhead Group's Lana Toler. The Spearhead Group set out to revolutionize the spirits industry and redefine how packaging and brand work together to deliver a more memorable buyer experience. Companies choose the Spearhead Group because they're invested in all aspects of the process and because they bring a unique and personable approach to each and every brand that they work with. Lana Toler is a creative and collaborative marketing innovation manager who transforms ideas into consumer-driven experiences on a global scale. Lana has decades of experience, including more than 16 years at Beam Suntory in various aspects of R&D, successfully collaborating with national accounts, sales, technical, manufacturing, marketing, and insight teams. Prior to Spearhead, she ran her own business, consulting with various spirits-related businesses, and has built teams, developed workspaces, and has standardized ways of working. Please welcome Lana Toler.
Hi, my name is Lana Toler. I'm really excited to be here today on the Dieline Decoded, what's next for the ready-to-drink and the cocktail-to-go categories. Before we get into the categories, I want to just give you a little bit of history of mine. I am a food scientist by education. I've spent 20 years in the spirits industry doing liquid and packaging innovation at Beam Suntory, and now most recently, packaging innovation with the Spearhead Group. I'm really excited because I feel like my career has transitioned into an innovator of products and packaging to really an innovator of consumer-driven experiences. So, what the heck are RTDs and cocktails to go? Ready-to-drink or RTDs are alcoholic beverages, and they're mixed drinks that are packed primarily in aluminum or bottles in a ready-to-consume format, usually in a manufacturing setting, where you have tamper-evident closures, you can do canning. It's really meant for sort of an on-premise, off-premise sale purpose. Cocktails to go are a little bit different, where they're also alcoholic beverages and they're pre-mixed, but they're primarily sold in cups and bottles in ready-to-consume format on-premise locations. What this does is it gives restaurants and bars an opportunity to provide their consumers with their homemade or their specialty cocktail freshly made right there on the spot. So that's the main difference between the two categories. Why is this important? Well, what in the AT double hockey stick happened in 2020? We all know what happened. There was COVID and lots of things changed, not only in terms of us not being able to go places, but us not being able to have the same cocktails and food that maybe we were previously excited about. I just wanted to mention a few major things that hit our restaurants and bars and why this has to do with the exponential growth in RTDs and cocktails to go. As you know, the restaurant service industry lost a lot of money, about $120 billion, in fact. 110,000 eating and drinking establishments closed in 2020. I'm still going to some of my old watering holes from before COVID and finding them closed as a permanent solution. Cocktails to go become the economic lifeline for bars. So when you have a smaller capacity and you're doing to-go type of food items, this opportunity for cocktails to go emerged, even larger than ever before. So if you think about going to your favorite restaurant and getting your meal to go, at this point we could only do to go, and you can get your favorite cocktail that you would normally drink there. This was a huge opportunity for these restaurants and bars. When you think about it though, previously that didn't happen except for in a few locations. So what's really exciting is the legal bodies of each of these states actually looked at this opportunity, and a lot of states got to do this on a temporary basis during COVID to be able to earn more money. Well, the good and even better news is that a lot of these states have decided to let this rule and these laws for cocktails to go continue to exist and become permanent. So at least 20 states, there's probably more now, that have allowed these cocktails to go to become permanent. Now, the tricky thing is every state has different rules in terms of what you're allowed to have for cocktails to go, in terms of packaging, in terms of tamper resistance, in terms of sizes. So it's not a one answer for all different approaches. So I think this is where there's going to be an interesting evolution in the next little while. Now, let's talk about why, in terms of the actual cocktails, were RTDs and cocktails to go so big. So it's more than just it's convenient, right? I'm ordering my food, and I want my beverage to come with it. But it's also, when you think about it, it's a one SKU investment. So I'm not going to the liquor store and buying 3 or 4 bottles of product that I need or fresh fruit that I need to make my cocktail. I can buy 1 cocktail to go with my meal. I can buy 2 cocktails to go with my meal if I want to. But I'm only making an investment into those freshly made cocktails, not into these other bottles. The other thing is it tastes good. You know what your cocktails taste like. You know what your food that you're ordering, you know the drinks that you're ordering from your restaurant or bar are going to be excellent. I think the other thing is more complex cocktails. When you think about, it goes back to SKU management as well. Let's say you want to do a strawberry margarita, or you're going to do a yuzu citrus cocktail highball. Things like that, where maybe you hadn't tried it before, but there's an opportunity for you to try things in, again, one investment, trying a more complex cocktail without buying all the ingredients and really kind of going outside your box. Why not? You're stuck at home. I think the main thing about cocktails to go and RTDs is that you can have your favorite cocktail. You take out your favorite cocktail with your favorite food. I can't emphasize that enough. That whole idea of having comfort with food and being able to have things that you know, since you're not allowed to go to locations. I want my cocktail that I usually have with this dish, with my dish now. So let's talk a little bit about what the evolution has been in terms of RTDs and now cocktails to go in terms of the liquid piece. For me, this is a huge, exciting category because it went from the beginning of my career, we were doing a lot of bourbon, plus flavor and sugar, plus carbonation, and really that was the beginning. Everybody, that were drinking RTDs or cocktails to go, it was a soda, right, with bourbon, and it was made in a can, or you do plus soda on premise. Well, 2021, lots of things are going on. So the RTDs and cocktails to go had lots more opportunities. You look at before, it was just bourbon when we were mostly putting in these ready-to-drinks, but now they're using every spirit. And if you haven't looked in the cocktail to go or the RTD sections in your local liquor store, you're going to see vodka-based, lots and lots of tequila-based. You're going to see gin-based cocktails. It's starting to differentiate more than from the malt beverage RTDs that we've had before or this pure spirit. Any sort of spirit available is being made into RTDs. So it's very exciting about the variety. The next piece that I think is really huge also is the global influence on flavor. Before we were doing, bourbon and cola and bourbon and ginger, which are fantastic. But now the opportunity for the influence of different flavors, like before I mentioned yuzu, it is inspired, from Japan, and it goes into highballs, which is a higher carbonation drink with spirit, and now you have these unique flavors to put in. And also the custom flavor combinations. People are seeing maybe it's blackberry and basil or something like that put together. Whereas before we were really sticking to the basics, but I think now people are seeing this opportunity as let's try some new stuff. Another fun thing is multiple sweetener options. When you think about the sweetener options before, I was putting in sucrose, right? Or just sugar. Now people are looking at agave syrups, and they're looking at sweeteners from all different types of places in the world, and also sources from the world. And custom syrups are one of my favorite things to talk about when I go out to bars, mostly because the bartenders and mixologists are so excited to tell you about how they're making these custom syrups. They could have grown a garden and made this basil infusion with some touches of mint. And they've created these unique syrups to be able to add to your cocktails to give them a really unique point of difference. Then the last thing that's changed, before we would do a level of carbonation, right? It's got some bubbles in it, it's good. But now what we've been doing is looking at different levels of carbonation. Highballs that I mentioned are usually higher in carbonation level than perhaps your bourbon and Coke, or bourbon and soda. So the idea that you can change the flavor and the perception of your cocktails and RTDs with this multiple levels of carbonation is a huge differentiator. So really what I'm going to say is that RTDs and now Cocktails-To-Go have this huge new world of opportunity in terms of what they can do for the liquids. So let's kind of transition over to packaging. So it gets really big in 2020. We can make our fresh cocktails or beautiful cocktails and give them to our consumers when they come to take products out. But the interesting thing is you have to think about what's available to folks, right? We haven't really had time in 2020 to put custom packaging together. We're trying to use what exists. And I think what started to come about in early 2021 was really like, here's what the packaging is, but it's actually becoming more and more important to customize your packaging with your cocktails, to differentiate yourself, to really think about how important the actual delivery, and again, my favorite, the experience your consumers are having on the other side once they buy your product. So of course, jars and pouches and bottles, all of these things have to be products and closures that you can actually make your cocktail and put it in an on-premise location. Has to be simple. Can't take up a lot of space. As anyone who knows, who's worked on an on-premise location, you never have enough space. Where are you going to store your packaging? How are you going to make sure that you use closures or lids or seals that are tamper evident? Some states require that. Some states require a certain volume of a cocktail to be able to go. So people have gotten very innovative this last year in terms of how to label their stuff and what to use. Lots of cups with sort of the strip stamps over the top with stickiness so it's tamper evident. A lot of tamper evident closures and bottles, but they've gotten really crafty at putting labels on them, you know, craftily made by Fred at whatever restaurant. The idea that these are very customized is really intriguing people. So what do we do now, right? So ignore these beautiful colors on here because they're probably not normal cocktail colors. So just to show the packaging, we're really starting to say, okay, well, what else is there? There's this single serve experience. You want to think about what your consumers are doing with your products after you eat or after they buy them, right? One of them is single serve. I'm going to have my margarita with my dish and that's all I want. Or I'm going to have 3 or 4 people with me and we're each going to have one. Or maybe I like to have 2 and my significant other likes 2. So there's a couple of options in terms of these single serve options. But the other opportunity is also multiple serve experiences. So again, these are larger bottles that you can make a 64-ounce batch of margaritas and share that with a group of people that you're ordering food for. Or this is sort of like the giant tea or lemonade jar where you can actually have people self-serve themselves. Same thing with bag-in-a-box. All this technology in these packaging exist. But how do you use those on premise? Again, thinking about the ease and functionality of these products. How do I store these things? Obviously putting tamper resistant and using closures that will open once your consumer gets it. And how are they using these? What are they doing? Now that people are getting together again, they're still taking their drinks and going somewhere and partaking with other people. Having cocktails and drinks and dining together is a huge social aspect that I think everybody's been missing. So the last thing I want to talk about is sort of the third experience. How do we think about mix it yourself or the multiple serve experience where you're actually letting your consumers add value to the cocktail proposition here? You know, for an on-premise location, this could be simple. You do your custom mixture in here. Maybe you sell a full bottle of spirit, smaller bottle, and then you have your custom syrups in here. So you're really able to give a set to your consumers and let them actually partake in the cocktail making and then serving piece of your cocktails. The other thing, you could do this on an off-premise location too. Full bottles, right? You got some margarita mix you could get off the shelf. You got a bottle of tequila you could get, and then you have maybe triple sec or some other flavored orange type of product or taste flavoring. You think about strawberry margaritas or whatever. But this way, the opportunity exists for both on and off premise. Taking existing things or taking your custom items, packaging them up, letting your consumers batch them together and be part of the cocktailing. So what do you think is going to happen next? Now what? Where are we going? Well, as everybody know, and I've already alluded to, consumers are super hungry for experiences. I don't know if anyone's tried to go out on the Bourbon Trail, trying to get reservations for distillery tours and things like that. Everything is full. People are so excited to get out there. This is how we can take our cocktails to go and our ready to drinks through an evolution. So how I think about this is I think about what is my inspiration? How do I think about what I want to do, what I want to drink? Now that I've been sort of stuck around home for the last little while, I want to get out there and say yes to everything. Opportunity comes up, why not? Why not do it? So I think this is the approach that I take when I start thinking about what my consumers would want to see and how to participate in their cocktail making and sharing of cocktails. Of course, for me, experiential inspiration is key to what we want to do, right? How do I think about what our consumers want to do? Well, I think about what are my experiences. I've been stuck inside for so long. I want to get out there and I want to say yes to everything. Why not take an adventure? Why not do something? Why not try something? So I kind of think through all the places that I've lived and where I've traveled and the influences and how people get together and socialize and say yes to experiences. So the other thing that I like to do when I think about creating an experience is really how do I connect with my consumers using all of their senses. I know some people are thinking, how can you do that with packaging? You can't smell or taste it necessarily. Well, I think the idea that your visuals and what you're looking at makes you want to taste and smell it, I think those are all cues that kind of connect back with sensory. Sensorial and emotional connection are obviously huge. You think about, you smell something, oh my gosh, that smells like the campfire that from the fires when I was a kid and we were with our family, we went every summer, and it takes you to a place. Aromas are extremely sensorial and they're also very connected in your brain. Same thing with taste, right? If you taste something and it tastes terrible, well, you're most likely not going to have that again, right? Your body and your brain remembers smell and taste. But I think also the appeal to when you see things, being able to touch the paper on the label, feel the texture, hear the texture on packaging. I remember a few years ago, there was a company that put out a new bag for chips. trying this new material and thinking about the whole experiences. Well, unfortunately, when consumers were going and opening the bag, it was so noisy that they had to stop what they were doing, or they weren't able to eat in front of other people because the bag was so loud. So packaging and what you're putting in to consumers' hands is really important to think about. Not only when you prepare it, put your product in the containers or the packaging, but also what your consumers are doing with it afterwards, right? So what does this mean? How do I start connecting these folks? You start thinking about those three experiences again. One of them really is around the single serve experience. One is around the multiple serve experience. And one is I'm going to make an experiential kit. We started thinking through this and started developing some packaging this last year. And what it is it's around how do we create an experience or give your consumers an experience. And of course, as one of my main objectives, looking at the sustainability as well. This last year, using a lot of single-serve containers, a lot of styrofoam cups that can't be recycled at all. But what we started to do is think about the experience for consumers, right? How do we create packaging to help them have a sort of more upper scale experience? So if you're going to go have a steak, and normally you have an old-fashioned, right? Now, do you want your old-fashioned already in a container mixed together in a glass bottle with a tamper-evident closure? That's fine, absolutely. But how do we take it to the next level? How do you think about, let's give them some sort of glass structure that is reusable, and then build up the components inside. Put bottles in there that they can mix together. How do we start thinking about adding different marks on the side of these bottles for different recipes, making use and recycling a lot of these things that maybe can't be recycled. We also started thinking about the garnishes. So when you think about your premium cocktails, you always expect a garnish of some sort, right? Old fashions or any other drink have limes or lemons or cherries or anything like that. How do you give that to them and let that be the added touch? So we started doing some design work and thinking about a tamper-resistant type of container. So here's the lid that goes on top of it. And then there's a separate container on the top where you can provide the different items to put onto the glasses. So I think this is really helping us think through the evolution and sort of the increased equity maybe of some of these more premium cocktails. So these are some other thoughts around this as well. How do you look at, let's put a kit together, but the outside pieces are all sustainable, right? Maybe it's made out of paperboard material and it flips inside out and becomes a stand in your kitchen, or you have a mixing glass that has your recipes on the side, and maybe this container that had some of your cocktail components could become a planter. So I think we're really trying to figure out and look outside the box of, how do I just give you a bottle of pre-made cocktail, or in a can or in a bottle, but how do we help these on-premise locations really take this cocktail to go to a different level? I would love to talk about this all day long, but I know I only have a short amount of time. But if you're interested in this topic and would like to talk to me some more, please reach out. I'm on social media. I would love to talk to you about this, or if you have some fun ideas like, hey, I saw this cocktail to go type of packaging, or I love the idea of doing some more sustainable packaging in an area, I would love to chat about it. So please reach out to me. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Hi, Lana.
Hi.
That was great. Thank you so much for doing this presentation and diving deep into this category that we all are pretty familiar with and love. So I wanted to ask a few questions that we have here. So let me get started. First, let's ask a fun question because you're the queen of this category. So, and you're a cocktail pro. What's the best cocktail you've had that maybe we haven't?
Ooh, that's a good question. I have to say, I'm really loving the adventure of new citrus fruits with spirits. So, taking the Paloma, where it's got grapefruit and tequila, but they're actually trying other types of grapefruits from other countries with tequila. Same sort of thing with brown spirits. I'm more of a bourbon person, but I even mentioned yuzu, actually has some grapefruit hints to it, where we're trying to borrow and build beautiful profiles from citrus. So I would recommend anything with soda and that fresh squeeze of new fruit.
Yum. Okay. Okay. I really love a citrus. It's like I think it's like Asian Filipino. It's called calamansi. I have to try it with like maybe some like vodka. Okay.
Yeah.
Uh, so you talk about emerging trends. What are the emerging trends in the ready to drink sector for the next year, do you think?
Well, I think we're just going to see a lot more entries into this category. I think that the competition's going to get stiffer as we go, and I also think the opportunity to differentiate is going to become more important. So that's why I'm thinking about what is that experience we're trying to create. So the trends towards helping consumers create an atmosphere or share among other people, I do think that packaging will be key in explaining sort of these processes and helping consumers take advantage of those opportunities.
Great, great. Um, Also, we talked about this, you and I privately a little bit, but how do you bring an experience to non-alcoholic ready-to-drink category? We've seen like a boom in this category with non-alcoholic. I think there's a huge audience, and the design also has been so beautiful. What's come out. So, what are your thoughts on bringing that kind of experience to non-alcoholic?
Yeah, that's very interesting. Actually, I'm quite excited to see the category of non-alcoholic beverages going into the cocktail space, because what this really is doing is giving people an option. I want to have that same experience sitting in a loungy type of atmosphere. I'm able to have this more premium, kind of like a soda. You don't want to have the Diet Coke anymore. Like, you want to be with the rest of your friends having that cocktail experience, trying new flavors, and even these non-alcoholic beverages, the taste and the feel of it is reminiscent of the alcohol, but it's really just a different way to create that more elevated experience. So the volume's still very low, but the opportunity is quite large. A lot of folks are even opening on-premise locations dedicated to non-alcoholic beverages just to start showing people how much the experience is important to what they're drinking.
Oh, that's really cool. I'm really excited to see this category too. I think there's been some really great innovation in it, so that's really cool. Um, I have a question here is from Linus, and he says there is an issue with quality perception in RTDs. They're not normally perceived as high quality, he says. Do you think that's true?
Yeah, I think that goes back to kind of what I was talking about, is they used to be perceived as this: you add flavors, you add sugar, and you add spirit, and it's a super basic, not a lot of thought put into it, or it's a plus one soda. But I think what's happening is with the evolution between the liquid and the packaging both, RTDs are becoming more premium. And I think because RTDs cover not just those basic formulas, right, of sugar and flavor, but now they're looking at pasteurized fruit juices. It's going to be a straight spirit as the base versus maybe before, I think I mentioned malt bases were a big piece of RTDs because it costs less for the manufacturers. It costs much more to use the actual spirit, and then actually using fresh fruit juices and componentry that they have never used before. And even the sweetness applications here, and the products that they're using cost more. They're different, but the profiles are different and have gone way up. So I've seen anything from RTDs, you could buy one maybe for $1.50 up to $20, right? So people are getting really crafty in terms of materials, ingredients, and that presentation.
Great. Yeah. So there's a scale here of like high and low, like everything. Yeah. Yeah, great. So it's almost the holidays, which I'm sure is like the number one time of the year to drink. Maybe because of family to get through those days. But despite all of the supply chain craziness that we're all experiencing, it's just because of COVID. Have you seen any holiday themed cocktails or cocktail kits that are really well done?
It's interesting you bring this up because obviously it is an important time of year for the spirits category, but it's more around gifting spirits and being able to give sort of the value add to the consumer. So around the end of the year is when people put together the glasses with the bottles or the other things that kind of try to give them more of a gifting experience to whoever they're buying for. I think it's also about adding to that experience. So I've seen a lot of folks now, they're doing advent calendars a lot across whiskey. Some of them are like you open the door and you don't know which whiskey it's going to be. I think a lot of that experience of what they're trying to do for gifting during this holiday season is what's changing. The products are a lot the same, but the whole idea of the reveal experience, you can now direct to consumer ship spirits to people in a lot of states. And this opportunity, the e-commerce part of it, and how they're opening up these shipper boxes with their beautiful bottles and their crystal glasses, or even little tasting sets of cute bottles and labels and glassware. I think that is really how we're going to be differentiating this year holiday season and moving forward. How do we keep taking that experiential evolution with the consumers for a gift, for themselves, and how do you share that out with everybody?
That's great. Yeah. I definitely would love a whiskey advent calendar. That sounds like so cute and fun. What things shouldn't designers do when packaging these cocktail kits? What's some like no-nos?
Well, I think the main thing I think about is around ease of use and also right fit. So ease of use means like when you're in a manufacturing setup, you can use any type of equipment that you can imagine to get it all put together and put it on. It's super simple. But when you start thinking about that, doing large scale, like say in a chain restaurant or an on-premise bar that's doing larger volume, but still wants to do this type of thing, how can you make sure that all the packaging is easy for them to store, for them to actually put together without having a lot of extra equipment, but also still managing to look beautiful and alluring for that experience? So I think that's kind of where we are in this quandary right now. Beautiful, beautiful cocktails. How do we take the packaging to be to that on-premise location to help them have more options to share their products?
Oh, that's good advice. I have maybe like a comment, and maybe you can speak on it a little bit from Larry. He says it also seems like millennial target audience is more inclined towards convenience and all-in-one products, but also crafted and artisanal beverages. What are your thoughts on like millennials, boomers, and in the spirits category? Do you think millennials are more inclined to do just all-in-one products, or are they wanting more of a crafted artisanal experience?
That is interesting. So I do a lot of research and insights on what consumers are doing. And I do think the millennials are experiential users, love the crafted artisanal approach, especially the way things are marketed, right? But they don't necessarily know all the details behind the bar, I'm going to say. For the Gen Xers, right, we love a little bit more of the let's mix it ourselves, maybe trying to take it up, right? You start looking at how much money these different groups have too. And even going to some of these distillers and on-premise locations, I'm actually seeing across the board folks in every category doing cocktails to go, because you can go from your basic +1 cocktail all the way up to your premium old fashioned in a bottle that you're having with your $100 steak. So the cool thing about this category, not RTDs as much as I would say cocktails to go, but it's a much more diverse audience than I think I've seen in a lot of areas for a long time.
So, yeah, I feel like spirits is everybody loves it. So yeah, everybody's into it. Well, great, Lana. These are really great questions. You are a pro at answering this. No one better for this category and this presentation. I hope everybody got a little bit of insight and what's happening in the future and all of the impact of COVID. I think you touched on so much. Is it cool if I share your Instagram on the chat so people can follow you and maybe send you a message if they have any other questions?
Absolutely, I would love that. And I just want to thank everybody for coming today. And then if you have any ideas or things that you've seen that are interesting, definitely reach out. I'm always tasting and looking at new products and packaging, and always inspired by other folks coming up with ideas. So I would love to hear from you.
Oh, great, great. Reach out to Lana, get into her messages. I put in there the Instagram for Spearhead Group. I want to thank you so much, Lana, for lending us your time and doing this with us. I really, really appreciate it. And for anybody, this is on demand, and I put the link in the group chat so you can watch it later if you missed parts of it or anything like that. So thank you, Lana. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
We'll talk soon. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.